When was the last time you saw a no frills, kick ass action thriller? For me, it's been so long I can't actually remember. It couldn't have been Extraction 1. But, anyways, Extraction 2 was an absolute blast. We need more of this and less of this. When Marvel and DC start making fun movies again, I'll be happy. And good on Chris Hemsworth. I'm sure he likes getting to do a movie like this and be praised for his performance, unlike the travesty that was Thor Love and Thunder. As well as the director Sam Hargrave, he managed to top the first film, which is no mean feat. So Extraction 2 picks up right after the end of Extraction 1. The quick summary of that film: Tyler Rake, a mercenary, was working with his team, Nick and her brother Yaz, to save the son of a crime boss in Bangladesh. There's a big shootout in the end on a bridge. Tyler fakes his death, though it's hardly faking because he was actually about to die. And that leads straight into Extraction 2, where Nick finds him. She takes him to a hospital in Dubai, and 9 months later, he wakes up, goes through rehab, and he retires to a cabin in Austria to raise chickens. And with the way the world is right now, that actually sounds pretty great. But Tyler is called out of retirement and calls his team back together for another mission. This time, his ex-wife's sister needs to be broken out of a prison in Georgia. Not because she's a criminal, but because she's married to a member of the Georgian mob, and I'm talking about the country, not the state. So this guy David, because of the connections he has in the Georgian government, was able to get his wife and kids to live in the prison with him, which sounds like a terrible scenario. And of course, the wife quickly regrets agreeing to those circumstances, and who can blame her? I mean, she's living with 2 children in a prison, and her husband was beating her. So Tyler is going to go bust his former sister-in-law out of jail. But because he's been out of the game for almost a year, he's got to get back in fighting shape. Now, he's not Fat Thor, but his muscles are slightly atrophied, so he requires a training montage somewhat similar to Rocky 3, another great action film. Now, one of my favorite action films of all time is The Raid. And if you know that film, the prison escape scene in Extraction 2 is very similar, albeit it's shorter and involves more shooting than hand-to-hand combat. Moving on to the next big action sequence, which is really what this movie's about. It's going from action sequence to action sequence. But the second one is definitely the most bombastic fight to take place in the film. And of course, I'm talking about the train fight. Zarab Radiani, David's brother, and his enforcers are after Tyler and the family after Tyler killed his brother during the prison escape. So Zarab sends guys in trucks, motorcycles, helicopters. You've got Nick and Yaz fighting individual enforcers on the train, while Tyler fights off the helicopters with a minigun in a scene that was ripped straight out of a Call of Duty game. I know a lot of people out there dislike Call of Duty. I definitely don't enjoy it as much as I used to, but this scene was completely ridiculous in a fun way. I think one of the Russo brothers must have seen their kids playing Call of Duty and thought, hey, this is perfect. And it was. I was laughing out loud at these scenes, but also genuinely enjoying it. So Tyler and the family escaped to Munich, where they were supposed to meet up with Tyler's ex-wife Mia and get some new fake IDs so that the wife and kids would get to go live a whole different life. But the son, Sandro, betrays their location. He's pissed because Tyler killed his father and his mom lied about it. As they were traveling, she kept stringing him along, telling him that his dad would meet them at the next destination, knowing full well that he was dead. So Sandro ends up with Zareb, who, despite wanting to avenge his brother and keep Sandro on the family path of joining the Nagazi, he ends up using his nephew to try and kill Tyler. And this leads to a final knockdown, drag-out fight that Tyler wins. And there's even a quick nod to Thor.
I'm still worthy.
So Sandro, the mother and daughter are safe. Tyler and Nick are heavily injured but alive, though they do end up going to a German prison. Unfortunately, Yaz didn't make it. He actually died in the second act of the film while he was protecting the family. So my question is, when is the third movie coming out? This is a kick-ass franchise, and quick disclaimer, I have not actually read the graphic novel that these two films were based on. I believe it's called Ciudad, and it was actually co-written by one of the Russo brothers. Because I haven't read it, I don't know how accurate the characters are to the source material, but I am fairly certain that the story is quite different. But if it's similar in the themes and the action, then I bet it's great. Obviously, the action is the centerpiece of this film. There isn't a whole lot of depth to the characters to include their backstory, but that's fine. It works, it's fun, and we know just enough about these characters to get invested. Learning a little bit more about Tyler Rake with each movie, while 95% of it is action, suits me just fine. For instance, in the first film, we knew that Tyler was estranged from his wife because he didn't handle the death of their son well. Their son died of cancer while Tyler was serving in Afghanistan. In this film, we learned that he didn't have to go to Afghanistan, that he went because, as a father, he couldn't deal with being there watching his son die and being helpless to do anything about it. So instead, he went to war, thinking maybe there he could have some sort of impact. But what his ex-wife reveals at the end is that his son was actually proud of him. He believed that his dad was overseas because he was saving the world. He believed his dad was the best guy ever, which has to hurt more. This whole time, Tyler believed that his son hated him in the end because he wasn't there, but now he learns that it was the opposite. He believed in his dad and thought he wasn't there with him because he was strong and needed to save the world. But in reality, Tyler wasn't there because he was weak. So that revelation is a big double-edged sword. As I said, the story doesn't go too in-depth with its characters. The villain, Mr. It's All About Family, Zareb, does get a short backstory though. Zareb and his brother David were the leaders of a Georgian crime organization called the Nagazi, which they started after years of struggling on the streets of Armenia. Their family had fled to Armenia when they were children due to a civil war in Georgia. Zareb and his brother were bullied as kids and abused by their father. Zareb got the worst of it because he didn't protect his brother well enough, and he got it so bad that his father actually caused his deafness due to his beatings. And this closeness and idea of protection he has over his brother very much informs his character. He wants to avenge his brother's death. He wants to kill Tyler and punish his sister-in-law for betraying her husband. Obviously, Zareb and his brother were no saints, but he loved his brother, and his upbringing probably led him to believe that it was him and his brother against the world. You can start to understand where he's coming from, but then again, his brother was a douchebag who beat his wife, and Zareb, when all was said and done, even though he was doing all this because of family, he used his own nephew as leverage. I mean, he strapped a suicide vest to his nephew, holding the detonator, in order to get Tyler to surrender and disarm himself. So he was a shitbag, and I think he's written perfectly. We get a quick backstory to understand his motivations, but he's written in such a way to where we still hate him, and he's not given too much baggage that anything feels unresolved. After all, depending on how long this franchise lasts, Tyler Rake is going to continue cycling through villains. They don't need to be that complicated. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have recommendations for great action movies like this one, I would love to hear them. As always, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you never miss out on a new video. Thanks for watching.